It's 4 a.m. on the 6th of November 2025. Over Venezuela's coast, a single B-2 Spirit slides through the dark sky. Inside the cockpit, the crew sits in silence, every light dimmed. One switch flips. The bomb bay opens. A 30,000-pound GBU-57 drops free, vanishing into black air. 39 seconds. That's all it takes. The tail fins adjust, the guidance locks. Below, the port of La Guaira still hums with life workers unloading trucks, radios buzzing with late-night songs. Then the sky flashes white. A deep, rolling sound follows, more felt than heard. The ground ripples. Containers jump off stacks. Windows shatter across the waterfront. From above, the pilot only hears the calm tone in his headset. Weapon away, good release. Down below, alarms scream. The power dies. In the chaos, one question cuts through the smoke. Was it an accident, or the start of something bigger? La Guaira isn't just a port. It's Venezuela's lifeline. Every drop of fuel, every military shipment, every container of supplies passes through its docks. Strike here, and you don't just damage steel, you choke an entire nation's flow of trade and defense. That's why this target mattered. From a tactical view, La Guaira sits at the edge of the Caribbean, surrounded by mountains that make radar coverage weak. At night, the city lights blind air defenses, and the coastline's tight curves limit anti-air range. For the Air Force planners in Missouri, that was opportunity. A clean hit here would cripple supply routes and send a global message. Distance no longer means safety. For the bomber crew, this was more than another mission. 17 hours of flight, 3 mid-air refuels, and zero margin for error. One wrong command, one radar ping, and the stealth advantage vanishes. In that silent cabin, they carry not just metal and explosives, but the weight of history and risk. Far below, sailors aboard a guided missile submarine wait in total darkness, ready to unleash Tomahawk missiles the moment command gives the word. In another sky layer, F-22 Raptors guard the B-2 from invisible threats. Every piece moves together, air, sea, and silence, forming one blade aimed at a single heartbeat on the map. Because in modern warfare, control isn't won by who fires first, but by who strikes without being seen. And on this night, only one side was invisible. If you were watching that radar screen, would you press 1 for the Americans holding their silence? Or 9 for the defenders trying to survive the unseen? Comment below and don't forget to subscribe to follow how this clash unfolds next. The first alert didn't come from a radar. It came from a man's instinct. A Venezuelan technician at a coastal monitoring post felt the floor shake before his screen even blinked. He looked up, confused, as every console flickered once, then froze. By the time the radar caught movement, it was already too late. High above, 4 F-22 Raptors sliced through the thin clouds, their engines whisper quiet. "Picture clean," one pilot reported. The scope showed no hostile aircraft, no missile trails, no panic, yet just silence. But silence, at this hour, was the loudest warning of all. Hours earlier, over the Atlantic, the B-2 had met a KC-135 tanker mid-air. Two giants locked together at 28,000 feet, one steady, one trembling. The pilots held exact position 30 feet behind, 15 feet below, while 2,000 pounds of fuel poured every minute into the bomber's tanks. A single slip, a tiny misalignment, and the mission would end before it began. Far beneath the waves, in the cold calm of the Caribbean, the USS Georgia waited. A command light blinked green. Launch tube 1 ready. A hiss followed. Then a roar. The first Tomahawk missile erupted from the sea like a cork from a bottle, its booster igniting against the night sky. Seconds later, another, then another, 30 in total, each loaded with 1,000 pounds of precision-guided power. Back on land, sirens wailed near La Guaira. Crews scrambled to identify what was happening. Some thought it was an earthquake, others, a gas explosion. But as the first radar returns flickered on their screens, fast, low, and coming from the sea, everything changed. "Multiple contacts, bearing 047, a controller shouted. His commander hesitated only 1 second before yelling back, "Activate air defense now!" But activating radar meant lighting up like a beacon. Within seconds, one of the F-35 seconds above detected that frequency. Coordinates transmitted silently. A Super Hornet hundreds of miles away received the lock tone. A single HARM missile launched into the night. Its seeker remembered everything: the frequency, the location, the heartbeat of that radar pulse. Down below, the technician who had felt the first tremor looked up. A streak of light flashed across the sky. The impact hit before the sound arrived. The radar dome he worked under was gone in an instant. And yet, the mission had only just begun. The sky above Venezuela turned into layers of invisible motion. F-22 seconds patrolled the upper air, their radars watching every mile. F-35 seconds hovered farther out, collecting signals the enemy didn't even know they were sending. Down below, the USS Georgia's Tomahawks raced over the water at nearly 550 miles per hour. So low, their shadows skimmed the waves. "Targets in motion," one F-35 pilot murmured. His voice stayed calm, but his hands never stopped adjusting. Each missile icon on his display was alive, weaving toward the same coastline. At his command, data flowed to the Growlers, the electronic warfare jets that could twist every signal in the region into chaos. Minutes later, the air over Caracas filled with static. Radios crackled and died. Military frequencies jammed, then looped back false orders. Operators stared at screens that no longer matched reality. Some radars showed phantom aircraft, others showed nothing at all. The Venezuelan defense grid was still standing, but blind. A command truck tried to power up a backup system. The moment its radar lit, a growl filled the headset of a nearby Super Hornet pilot. Emitter locked. His finger tapped once. The HARM missile streaked away, climbing, turning, and diving down on the source. The explosion bloomed like a second sunrise. Over the Atlantic, the tanker crews continued their silent circles, refueling the strike group that would never appear on local radar. Without those tankers, the B-2 seconds and their escorts could never reach the Caribbean. But tonight, every refuel was flawless, each connection like threading a needle in turbulence at 500 miles an hour. Inside one Venezuelan command bunker, a young officer looked up at his colonel. "Sir, we're losing every signal." The older man didn't answer. He already knew. The entire defense network was crumbling not from lack of courage, but from overload. High above them, the lead B-2 turned toward the coast again. The pilot adjusted course by only 3 degrees, but it was enough to line up perfectly with the port below. The weapons officer whispered, "Ready for second pass." For a moment, everything went still. No missile trails, no radar beeps, no words. Just the hum of systems waiting for release. Then, like a heartbeat after a long pause, the pilot spoke. Doors open. What no one on the ground knew was that not every B-2 headed south that night. Several had turned west toward the Pacific, an intentional diversion designed to fool every satellite and radar operator watching the skies. Those aircraft were decoys, drawing foreign analysts to chase the wrong signals while the real strike package slipped quietly into the southern corridor of the Atlantic. The plan was simple but brilliant. False radio chatter, ghost transponders, and a wave of electronic reflections created the illusion of a massive westbound operation. For nearly 2 hours, foreign tracking centers watched shadows that didn't exist, while the true bombers were already approaching Venezuelan airspace, unseen and undetected. Far below, deep in the Caribbean, the USS Georgia prepared its last act. "Launch tubes 12 through 16, the captain ordered. The command was quiet but final. A loud hiss filled the sub, followed by a deep metallic thud. 5 Tomahawk missiles burst from the sea, climbing fast before leveling toward the coast. Each missile carried precise coordinates for fuel depots and radar control sites near La Guaira. In the sky, an F-35 pilot picked up a faint heat trace, a radar truck trying to move. No radio call, no hesitation. He tapped his control, marking the target silently. A Super Hornet hundreds of miles away received the mark, locked in, and fired. The strike was instant. The radar never transmitted again. Inside the B-2, The pilot didn't celebrate. There was no time for emotion. Just numbers, altitude, and a calm voice. All objectives confirmed. Every piece of the plan, every decoy, every signal had done its job. For Venezuela's defenders, it wasn't a battle anymore. It was blindness. The night sky offered no answers, only silence. The first Tomahawk hit a fuel depot near the waterline. A blinding flash cracked the night, followed by a thunder that rolled through the hills. The second missile struck a warehouse filled with diesel drums. 1 second of silence, then a wall of flame that turned the sky orange. Containers lifted off the docks and rained into the sea. "Impact confirmed," said a calm voice aboard the USS Georgia. The submarine crew stayed motionless, listening to the faint echoes through steel and water. "Proceed with final sequence," the captain ordered. Deep below, 5 more Tomahawks launched in perfect rhythm, each heading toward its target. Far above, the lead B-2 circled once, aligning for its last run. Inside the cockpit, every light was dimmed. "Bomb bay open," the weapons officer said. The doors parted beneath them, revealing the faint reflection of the coastline below. The 30,000-pound GBU-57 dropped free, spinning gently, guided by satellite precision. The pilot felt the release, the sudden lift as the bomber lost its weight. "Weapon away," he confirmed. 39 seconds later, the Earth responded. The weapon pierced deep before detonating, a pressure blast that shattered concrete and steel across hundreds of feet. Buildings folded like paper. Tankers tipped, the port's cranes twisted into the sea. Ground shock rolled through the valley, shaking windows as far as Caracas. Above, F-22 Raptors and F-35 seconds held formation, ensuring no fighter took off. None did. Their radar screens were dark, their comms silent. The Venezuelan Air Force had no eyes, no orders, no fight left. For 25 minutes, the operation unfolded like clockwork. No resistance, no interception, no losses. Then, the silence that followed was heavier than the explosion itself. In the cockpit, the pilot spoke softly. "Turning home." The B-2 banked north, its engines whispering through the dawn. Behind it, the Venezuelan coast burned quietly, smoke curling over the dark sea. The port of La Guaira, Venezuela's most vital artery, was gone. 1 mission, 24 aircraft, and less than half an hour had rewritten the map. If you were watching that fire from the shore, would you see justice or destruction? Press 1 if you call it precision, or 9 if you call it too much. Comment your choice below, and stay with us for what happened next. When the sun rose over the Caribbean, the coastline no longer looked familiar. The cranes at La Guaira leaned like broken matchsticks. Smoke curled from cracked fuel tanks and the remains of warehouses that had burned all night. The sea near the docks was black with oil and debris. Ships that survived the blast drifted quietly, their crews staring at the destruction in disbelief. Military observers from neighboring countries confirmed what satellites already showed: the port was gone. Not damaged, not crippled, gone. The blast had buried the loading piers under tons of twisted steel and concrete. Power lines and communication towers were wiped out in a 10-mile radius. The city behind it was half dark, running on emergency generators and shock. For Venezuela, the loss went beyond trade. La Guaira was the center of both commerce and military supply. Without it, fuel routes broke down, and shipments to inland bases stopped overnight. In less than a day, a single precision strike had achieved what years of sanctions couldn't. For the United States, it was more than a mission, it was a demonstration. A proof of concept that stealth, coordination, and speed could rewrite an entire theater of war without a single dogfight. B-2 seconds from Missouri, F-22 seconds and F-35 seconds over the Caribbean, and a guided missile submarine hidden in the deep, all operating as one silent machine. No losses, no response. Total control. The strike's ripple went far beyond Venezuela. Across the region, radars stayed off longer. Coastal defenses went underground. Every country on that map began to rethink what safe distance meant. In war, numbers don't lie. 25 minutes, 1 stealth bomber, 30 Tomahawks, and an entire nation's supply chain erased. Some called it strategy. Others, devastation. But every commander watching knew one truth: the next battle would come faster, quieter, and with even less warning. If you had 10 seconds to choose, would you power on your radar or stay invisible and hope to survive? Press 1 if you'd fight back, or 9 if you'd stay hidden and live to see another dawn. Comment your choice and subscribe so you don't miss what came next in this unfolding shadow war.